everybody doing today? Hope you can hear me okay with my mic and everything. I had to charge it up, so let me know if the sound gets effed up. Yeah. So we're live streaming on a Saturday. You can see my ironing that I have to do. Sorry about that. Oh, that's hilarious. I didn't move my clothes. Hey, I live here. It happens. So I put out. All right, let me start from the beginning. This has been a bit of a rough week, and not rough because anything major happened, thankfully, which I am extremely grateful for, but rough really more because just a bunch of little stupid, silly, annoying things happened throughout the week and just made my life that much tougher. I got an earache like in the middle of the day on Wednesday, even though I had the live stream plan. It just kind of came on me all of a sudden, and it was getting progressively worse throughout the day. So I was like, I don't think I should stream. I probably should take some meds and go to bed early because I know there's this nasty cold going around. My child was sick last week with it really bad. I've been, my schedule has changed with work and everything. So I was a little nervous about getting to the point where I would be actually sick because I just started this job and I didn't really want to call out sick this soon and things like that. So, yeah, so I thought it was best to cancel the live stream. So that started it off. And then the earache kind of came and went throughout the week. So my editing schedule was off. And then I was sitting down to do some editing for the video that's supposed to be released today. And for some reason, the editing software or my crappy laptop. Hey, Christopher, thanks for joining us. It's probably more like my crappy laptop because my laptop's super shitty because I bought it refurbished because I'm really cheap. And it happens every once in a while that it just does not want to support some of the software and or just start like honking out on me. It's really random. I need to get a new laptop, but I need to wait till I get paid first. Anyway, so the editing wasn't going very well. And then I tried to start over and do a different video that I've been working on. And I found out halfway through that the sound went out as I was recording it, which I didn't know. And now I have to do that all over again. So I couldn't do that one. And it's just, things just started to get a little bit hairy. So this morning I was trying to figure out what to do. And I thought, like, I owe everybody a live stream anyway. Might as well just live stream with you guys, talk about the stuff we were going to talk about earlier in the week, and then I can start the week fresh and get something out for you all. So thanks for joining me. You guys are great. If you could hit the like button, that just helps me out a little bit. If you're liking this, if you're not, that's cool. It happens. I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea. It's all right. But I appreciate it anyway. So I have a few things to talk about today. Where I did put out a question for the live stream earlier in the week about some things that you guys thought were annoying about Americans. I just thought it would be kind of fun. I've heard a few myself, so it's all in good fun. I am American in case you have not ever seen me before or can't tell by my accent. I am living here in the UK, and I've been called a lot of the names that people have called me in my comments throughout my entire tenure with my relationship with my British partner. So I just thought it would be kind of fun. A lot of people have said that some of these American like stereotypes and things about me and to even my face. So all in good fun. I do want to talk about something that happened back at home that was kind of not fun, to be fair, but it warrants a conversation. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that I still have to file my taxes in America, and that we actually have to do that in America, that you don't have to here. And then, of course, your questions or anything that you guys want to talk about that you bring up. So, yeah. So let's start with the shitty piece and go from there. Last weekend, we got a notification from a friend of mine on social media that the neighborhood, the town, this is the county, the entire county that we lived in Pennsylvania, which is a state in America, for those of you who don't know, was shut down, locked down, because somebody shot the mother of their children, then proceeded to go to a different dwelling and shoot their stepmother and their 13-year-old sister. And the gunman was at large. So they shut down the entire county because they were worried that the gunman was going to go and shoot somebody else. Turns out he did carjack somebody as well, and drove to Trenton, which is across the Delaware River in a state called New Jersey, so New Jersey's here right on the edge, and Pennsylvania is kind of out like this, and there's a river in between that separates them. You ever seen the picture of George Washington crossing the Delaware? That's the river that separates the two states. Anyway, he drove to Trenton, which is just on the other side of the river in New Jersey, and was apparently holding people hostage in a house there as well. Nobody in the hostage situation got hurt. They all got rescued before there was any incident. He ended up being tracked down outside of that house at some point and did end up turning himself in without incident at that point. But the whole time that it was happening, we were in touch with people through social media, because we didn't know the names of anybody of the victims. And my child is 13 and went to school in that area. So we were really concerned that it was somebody that we knew, obviously. It turned out there wasn't somebody that we knew. So we were grateful for that for our selfish reasons, obviously. And my daughter was very up and down, that day, trying to figure out, her emotions were all over the place, obviously. So I'm looking at this map right now, and I'll see if I can show it to you guys. So this is the map, right? So here is where 2 people got shot. Here is where 1 person got shot. And here's where the carjacking happened. We lived right there. And the diner that we used to go to breakfast at every Saturday was like right here, right near where the carjacking is. Really, really, really scary. And I wanted to talk about it because it's a firsthand account. I did speak to some people who were obviously terrified. And like I said before, for us in our, immediate circle, everybody was okay and safe. It is unfortunate, obviously awful, that 3 people died, 1 being a 13-year-old girl. I don't have any details about what the situation was. I haven't been able to find anything. I'm assuming that they're holding back a bit because of the minor that was involved, making sure that all of the stuff was taken care of. It's local news, so they're usually pretty good about that. It's national level that you got to worry in America. But yeah, it was really scary. And I wanted to talk about it because a lot of people that I talk to here, oh, thank you, Shakitha. I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate that, sweetheart. Thank you. A lot of the people that I talk to here don't understand the gun culture in America. And so I just wanted to break it down. And I have broke it down a little bit in some other videos, including the one about why we actually left, because guns were a big part of that. It's not that, it's that guns are so accessible in America. They're so easy to get. The restrictions vary from state to state. You know, what you have to go through to get a gun varies from state to state. And it's technically illegal to cross state lines with a weapon, but people do all the time. I don't know if there's like a national license that allows some people to do it. I'm not 100% sure about that. But it just in this incident alone, you know, you see how close the states are. You can just literally go over the bridge and you're in a different state. If he doesn't get pulled over for any reason, who's going to even know he's, you know, got a gun or is in a different state? And I think I talked about this on the last stream. There's a big culture in many states that families will hunt still. So they're literally families. So their young children grow up using firearms and having access to firearms. Now, I'm not saying that like they can just go into a cabinet and grab firearms. Most of the gun owners I've met have been pretty safe about like keeping the bullets in a separate place and having a safe that the kids can't get into and things like that without the parents being involved. And I'm not really advocating or not advocating for that, or guns in general. But just so that you understand, for those of you who are not privy to that information or have never experienced it, it's just not the kind of thing that you really have to worry about it. You're constantly aware that anyone around you could have a gun at any time, and a traffic stop has turned into people dying between police and civilians. Uh, Road rage incidents have turned into people shooting each other. People have been gone to grocery stores and gunmen have just walked in and started shooting people in grocery stores and schools. And I know a lot of you have heard about school shootings because they usually translate into other countries' news. Um, all of that stuff is just you're constantly aware that anyone can have a gun. Did anyone I know own firearms? It'd worry me if I knew that anyone in my street area had a gun. Yeah. Um, where I lived in New Jersey, the state law is much more stringent about who can get a gun. So I didn't know anyone really in New Jersey that had firearms per se. But when we moved to Pennsylvania, which is the next state over, yeah. I did tell this story in the last live stream, but yeah, everybody in Pennsylvania has a gun, at least one, because a lot of people hunt. And there's also shooting ranges and things like that where you can go and you can bring your own firearms. It's just really, really easy to get a gun if you want to. Really easy. And it is very nerve wracking. Like I had said earlier, a lot of the people I knew that had guns were really safe about them. But that doesn't mean they didn't carry them with them. They carry around with them. And it doesn't mean that they wouldn't use them if they were in a situation where they felt provoked or where they felt like they had to protect. And yeah, you just constantly have to be vigilant and tense about every situation, because any provocation or any situation where emotions will run high or people might be reacting on emotion rather than reacting, you know, in a calm, rational manner could turn into gunplay. And even if you personally don't have a gun, doesn't mean the other person next to you doesn't. And in some states, it's even legal for you to carry a firearm on you, like the Old West, like just carry it around with you. And I've actually been to states in the South and the Midwest where like they have literally like straps with like automatic weapons on the back of them. Now they're probably, the safety's probably on and they're probably not loaded, to be fair. But I've been in a coffee shop and seen people walk in with guns. Police have guns. Police have guns. There is a gunned, an armed policeman in my daughter's school. So I just wanted to like have that conversation. This obviously was really difficult for us because this particular incident was literally in our neighborhood, where we lived at that time, and we're still kind of shaken up about it. If you can't tell, it's scary, and it happens last weekend, which is right around the year anniversary of us coming to England. And my partner and I looked at each other and basically in just like a sigh of relief that we are here and we didn't have to deal with it. Because who knows what could have happened, where we could have been, or my daughter could have been at a friend's house. Like it could have been anybody. John Smith says, I'm 64 and the only time I've seen a gun here is at the airport, and even then I'm shocked at seeing one. It's actually it's kind of scary, not so much for me because I've grown up seeing them. And my dad was actually a veteran and belonged to VFW, which is Veterans of Foreign Wars, which is a veterans club in America. And he was in charge, he was vice commander. So part of his responsibility was they used guns like in parades for show and for 21 gun salutes when a fellow comrade died, etc., things like that. So part of his responsibility was the gun safety. So I kind of grew up with that. Christopher, I'm going to get to your stuff and to your comment in a second. So I kind of grew up with that. What was scarier for me was seeing my partner, who had been in America for a long time, his progression of when I first met him and how he reacted to guns and gunshots, to when we left and how that softened completely and he got used to it and it being around it, and then seeing my daughter being around it and being nonchalant around it. All of that was much, much scarier. And obviously for me, it being around my child and a armed policeman, and then being in a situation where her school had to get locked down a couple times. And now this, all it does is solidify that we, if only for that reason, we made the right decision by moving. Christopher Warsall, here, let me get to your comment. I did see it. Oops. What happened there? There we go. I had a friend that had guns when he lived in the UK. We used to go to a firing range, and he got married to an American lady and moved to Arizona, and he doesn't have guns, which shocked me. That would shock me too, actually. That would shock me too. Like, I remember when my brother-in-law and his partner came to the US to visit us, and all of us went to the gun range, because it's kind of a novelty, right? To be able to shoot whatever gun you want within reason. I don't think they have every gun, but they have a lot. So going to a gun range, and it was even though I had grown up around guns, I had never shot a gun before. So it was kind of a novelty for me too. And we went to a gun range and they had, I don't know, like 30 or so guns to choose from. Everybody there was really safe. Everyone there was really nice and helpful, and asked us about our history and all that kind of stuff. And I remember that they were really intrigued by the opportunity of shooting a gun. I've never owned a gun either, Christopher, and I never will, because I would be too afraid that it would be, the wrong person would grab it, or my child would grab it, or something like that. I would be too nervous. Growing up around the gun culture, it would make me too nervous. But when we were in the gun range, they were very safe and they were very lovely about it, and taught us all kinds of safety before we even picked up a gun. But you got to pick which guns you wanted to shoot, and you could shoot more than one. And even though I had grown up around them, I was nervous. shooting a gun for the first time. And for the first 2 shots, I didn't even really aim or pay attention. I just kind of pulled the trigger. And even the instructor was like, "Are you even looking at the target?" And I mean, I was aiming at the right place where he told me to go, but I was just not really, I was so nervous. My like nerves and my body functions, my anxiety had taken over. Um, and I finally like focused a little bit more, and he was kind of guiding me, and I shot the next 4 rounds. It was just a handgun. Not that that makes it any better, but I shot the full 6 rounds that I had asked to shoot. And he had said, "Okay, how do you feel?" And I started crying. I literally started crying because I was just like, this is unbelievably powerful. The damage that just this simple handgun with 6 shots could have done to somebody was so overwhelming to me. I could never imagine having any kind of automatic weapon or anything like that. Or I didn't want to be around guns ever. I didn't shoot for the rest of the day. I just kind of watched everybody else, um, and just to kind of let it happen. I couldn't handle it, so I would never be able to own a gun, and I would never be able to be with somebody that owned a gun. Um, I believe my partner has gone to the range a couple times with some friends and stuff like that, and we did have a friend who was a police officer, and I know he went to the range with him once or twice as well. Um, but my partner even said he would never own a gun, and he would never like go hunting or anything like that in a place where it wasn't extremely regulated and extremely um, just just people who knew what they were doing and was in a safe environment where it wasn't just people willy nilly like shooting things off. Wouldn't I? Hello. Um, I've owned a slug gun when I was younger. Things regarding guns were a lot more relaxed, and thankfully things have been tightened up regarding guns. Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know the details really, but it's definitely a lot stricter here than it is in America. And excuse my language, but it fucking needs to be, because the damn, I'm not saying that like, obviously you can get hurt with a knife, which I know knife crime is really, really big, not big here, but is something to be vigilant about here. And obviously, getting beat up and all that kind of, there's always a way that you can get hurt. If someone really wants to hurt you, they're going to find a way to hurt you. um Unfortunately, that's just a human thing. But the damage that guns can do is so permanent and so instantaneous. The power behind it is just so incredible. It's just really incredible. Like I said, it was really overwhelming for me, um, just being around it, just shooting a gun for the first time, even though I grew up around guns. And like I said, I mean, my dad would shoot guns at memorials and things like that. And I would go see him when they would have, we had like what your equivalent of like Poppy Day, I think it is, where you honor like fallen soldiers and veterans and stuff. We like would go see my father when he would do that at memorials near our house and things like that since I was little. So I grew up listening, hearing guns. They're, like I said, they're always in a very controlled environment, and it was my dad who I knew what he was doing and only shot guns in those instances. Um, so it's, yeah, it's I don't know how else to describe it. It's really hard to describe if you haven't experienced it personally. Um, but of course, my heart goes out to the family that lost those 3 people, and anyone else, all the hostages that were held at the house while the gunman was there, and anyone else that was involved that got hurt or is still dealing with any of that, because it is traumatic. I mean, not my my poor daughter, she was in tears because she thought one of her friends might have been involved, because we heard a 13-year-old was involved. And it could have been anybody she went to school with, or she took dance lessons with, or she did a show with. It could have been anybody. So, yeah, very scary. We're going to move on in a second. David Rhodes. Hi, how are you, David? Thank you for joining. When you realize that any person, anywhere, at any time could just be having a really bad day and you could be in the wrong place at the wrong time, bad stuff happens everywhere, of course, but still, 100%, David, that's the situation in America. Like I said, some states like California, New Jersey have a bit stricter laws. So when you're in that state, you can be a little more relaxed, but it doesn't mean that you can relax 100%. And it is very, it's really just taxing. It is constantly on edge. But thankfully, it's something that we have to be less vigilant about here. I'm not saying that the UK is 100% safe. Obviously, like I said earlier, night crime is high here. Robberies are high here. I know in the cities like London, muggings are high, pickpocketing, things like that are high. It's just not in your face prevalent as far as gun culture is concerned in America. But you're 100% right, David. It's just a matter of someone being in the wrong place at the wrong time in most instances. It's really, really sad. But we're going to move on because I try really hard to not be very, down on this channel. I try to be as light and fun as possible because there's enough negative shit out there on YouTube specifically, but also just the internet in general. So I do try. But I want to talk about because I mentioned this to somebody at work the other day, and they looked at me like I had 8 heads, and then I realized, yeah, you guys don't have to do that here. So I have to file my taxes for America. So at the end of every calendar year, you have to actually submit paperwork to the federal government, your local government, and your state government about the amount of money you made and the taxes you paid, and see whether or not you owe more taxes or they owe you taxes. Yes, each individual citizen is responsible for that. Now, I have to file them because we moved in March, and both my partner and I were still working in January, February timeframe. So if you're working during that year, you at any point in that year, you have to file your taxes. You even have to file your taxes if you're not working. You have to make sure that the governments know that you did not work and you had no income. How do you like that? What a pain in the ass too. It's a real pain in the ass. Yes, John Smith, you're right. As far as I know anyway, as far as people have told me, that owning a gun in the UK is very restrictive, and we are very grateful for that. Filing your taxes in America, though, it is really stressful. You have until April 15th, so I have a couple weeks left, and I definitely have to get on that. I did start them, but I didn't finish them because it's a little bit complicated because we moved. So I had to do a little research. But you can get a deduction. You fall into a tax bracket, and then you can, based on your income, you fall into a certain tax bracket, right? Which is, I believe, what happens here as well. And then you can alter your income based on if you're taking care of children or other maybe adult dependents. If you worked for yourself, then you can do some certain deductions. If you work from home, you can do certain deductions. If you travel for work, it's really complicated, to the fact that the instruction manual is like 30 pages long. But I wanted to ask you guys about taxes here. You don't have to do that here, right? I mean, I know the income tax gets taken out of your check because I've had to, because I switched jobs, I had to get information from my previous job about what I paid and give it to my current employer and stuff like that. But I believe you don't have to do any paperwork like that or anything, right? Um, and if there are any people that are here that are American, could you let me know if we still have to pay like file our taxes even next year, even though I didn't work in the U.S. at all for 2024? Because I've heard you do. I heard it's one of the only countries, the United States is one of the only countries that makes people who don't actually live in the United States still file and pay taxes. And if that's the case, that's fucked up. Again, excuse my language. You guys will, if you're going to come on to more live streams, you're going to find out that I actually have the mouth of a truck driver. Sorry, excuse me. But it is effed up. So if anyone knows had any information with that, comment or send me a chat or send me a DM on Instagram or Threads, and I'm definitely interested in learning more about that. But I thought I remember my partner saying that he didn't have to file taxes because he lived in America, so he just had to write "live abroad" or something on this piece of paper that was asking him why he hadn't paid taxes. And I don't really know. Honestly, I wasn't really paying attention. He was talking to his mom about it, so I was just kind of, I don't have to deal with it. But I should have, because now I do have to deal with this. But yeah, I literally have to claim my income, claim my partner's income, claim that I have a child that I'm taking care of, and claim any other things that they're called deductions, any other deductions that I might be able to have, and then file it, and hopefully the government will come back and say you don't owe us any money. But it is possible that I could owe them money and have to pay them money, even though I don't fucking live there. And what's the point? As an American, what's the point of paying taxes as an American? Because you don't get any health care out of it. You don't get any kind of actual like time off. You don't get any kind of like federal time off. You don't get any assistance really with housing unless you're like dirt poor. But ask the I don't know if it's millions, but tens of thousands of homeless people living on the streets and in their cars right now, if they're getting any help from the fucking government. You don't get help with feeding your child. You don't get help with clothing your child. You don't get any help with daycare for your children. Some places you don't even get like firemen and stuff in some places. A lot of the educational systems suck. That's why Americans are so stupid, because the education's fucking terrible. That's local stuff though. It's not federal, to be fair. Christopher says there's another YouTuber. She's got dual nationality and she married an Englishman who lives in Kent. Look, it's the thing to do now. I'm just a trendsetter. There are actually a lot of the American expats that are living in the UK. I found like a Facebook group or something about it. There's a lot of them. A lot of people in America, because my husband was a soccer coach. That's why he ended up in America. And when I met him, and he worked with like, I don't know, a handful or so of other English soccer coaches, and they all married American people and stayed in the US. And he's like, we're going back. It's pretty funny. Achievable Bodies Online said, I noticed every time I stayed or worked in the US that people would say they were Irish American, Italian American, etc., when nor their parents or grandparents had been born in Ireland, Italy, etc. Yeah. That's very American. That used to really wind up my husband. He used to be like, you're not Irish American. You're American. You could have Irish heritage or Irish descendants. That's fair. You're a descendant of Irish people. That's fair. But you're not Irish. And that's valid, to be honest. I mean, I'm like sixth or seventh generation. I'm an actual American mutt. My heritage is mixed between both my parents. Of There's actually some English in there, but it's mostly Irish, which made my husband very happy. Um, German, Hungarian, Dutch, and then English. So I'm a complete American mutt. So for me, I never identified in those kinds of contexts, but there's a lot of people in America that do. And it's about showing pride for your heritage because um, so many of the ethnicities in various stages throughout the country were um, discriminated against for one reason or another. Um, some much worse than others. Um, but yeah, that's a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that, or they'll fly like the flag, like the Irish flag. Like you're not Irish. What are you flying the Irish flag for? And then another American thing is they'll celebrate something like Cinco de Mayo when you're not Mexican. It's just an excuse to drink, basically, which Americans always have. All they need is an excuse and they'll get drunk. Achievable Bodies Online also said, if you're born here, you're British, not African British or Italian British, just British. I agree. Like I said, that's how I always identify. I identified as American. I never identified as anything else, but I've never been a first or second generation. Um, you know, I was like fifth or sixth, like I said. So I don't know that it's different if you have, like, if one of my parents was of a different from a different an immigrant from a different country, I might change it. I know my daughter did identify as both English and American because obviously her father is English. Um, but she never walked around and said she's English American, right? But then she had us as parents and we wouldn't let her do that. So that's probably not a good example then. The channel is Girl Gone London. I actually know that channel. I don't know her personally or anything, but I know that channel. I've watched some of her stuff. So yeah, I hear what you say. So she lives in Kent. Oh, that's hilarious. I might have to reach out to her, DM her or something, or try to direct message her somehow. I didn't know she lived in Kent. I thought she said she lived in London. And the stuff that I've watched, but I've watched a few of her videos, and she's actually really funny. She's been here a really long time too, so that actually might be. That's why I wanted to watch her, because she has some pretty good advice that's helped me out. John Smith says a YouTuber, Evan Edinger, an American who lives here, has done a few things on U.S. taxes if you live abroad. Oh, cool. Thank you. Appreciate that, John Smith. I'm going to definitely check him out because I do need to find out some shit about the taxes. See what I mean? Truck driver. This is natural for me now. There are very few, Chris said, there are very few pure English people. I would imagine, considering you guys had territories all over the fucking world for a really long time, yeah, I could imagine. She has an email address. She's been here 11 years. Okay, I'll check her out. Thank you, Christopher. Appreciate all that information. I'll check her out as well. I'll reach out to her. Thanks, you guys. See, this is why I love this community. You guys are amazing. You help me out a lot. You love correcting me when I'm wrong. But for the most part, you're positive and you want to help, and I really appreciate it a lot. So let's move on to the question that I posed for everybody. What annoys you about American? Again, this is supposed to be fun. I'm not going to take anything personally. Don't worry. But what I'll do is I'll start the ball rolling, and then I'll read some of the stuff that people sent in. And oh, you guys are mixed because you got invaded by Vikings, Normans, Saxons, and Danes. Yeah, I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that you colonized a bunch of countries across the world as well. Look, it's a global world now. There's very few people that are 100% pure anything at this point. and being American, like it's second nature to me. Like I said, there's very few people. I only met like two people other than my partner that are, and again, his descendancy it probably isn't 100% British, but one person who both parents were Hungarian and were actual immigrants, and then one person who was an immigrant themselves. They weren't an immigrant; they're from Puerto Rico, which America owns. Um, who was their descendants were all from Puerto Rico, from what they knew. They were 100% Puerto Rican. So that was all I knew in America, though. Other than that, everybody was mixed in one way or another in America. So it doesn't it doesn't surprise me and doesn't faze me either. Um, right. So what annoys you about Americans? I'm gonna go first by telling you a very personal story about when I first met my in-laws. I didn't know they were going to be my in-laws at that point. It was still very early, but I remember my partner saying, "Hey, what do you think of her?" You know, and kind of overhearing him talk to his mother in the kitchen. Oh, thank you, wouldn't I? Have a good day. Glad you could join us. Um, and she said, "Well, she's loud, but she's American, so I expected that." And a bit arrogant. I never thought of myself as arrogant, but I guess I am a little bit. I don't know. I don't know, but I know I am loud. I am very loud. I was a cheerleader. I was a performer. I was a singer. Um, so I kind of just always had volume going. Yes, I do have a problem here in the UK with being loud, and I'll be loud, and people will turn around and look at me. And I'm not doing anything like disruptive that I think of. It's just that I'm very loud. I'll just all of a sudden come out and be like, "I know," and be like almost in a screamy kind of voice, not like meaning to be disruptive. It's just part of my personality and character, I guess. But that I have been told is very annoying. Yeah. So Christopher says Americans don't annoy me, just don't like them complaining about our food, which comes from the war when we were rationed. Yeah, that is um oh, okay. I'm sorry, wouldn't I? I'll get to you in a second. I misunderstood. Yeah, the food thing. I have a theory about that. And I think it has to do with the fact that American palates are so used to being hopped up on so many preservatives and artificial sweeteners and flavors that when we taste real food, we don't get it. Do you know what I'm saying? And a lot of Americans will come to Europe, and it's usually on a vacation or something, so it's only for a couple weeks max in most cases. So they don't even have time to really kind of get rid of that and be able to kind of cleanse that palate and be able to actually taste the food. I'm just speaking from my personal experience. That's where that theory comes from, because it took me a couple months to not to find that I was actually enjoying my food. It took me a few months to, even though I was sort of used to the food from visiting here and things like that. It did take me a couple months to kind of not expect the American taste as I was eating something. Plus, potatoes are potatoes, but obviously they're grown in different dirts and things like that. There's different things in the soil. Um, everything tastes a little different. And you're here in England, I know that your standards are very different than what we have in America for our food. So that might also have something to do with it. But I can understand how that's annoying. Um, and I did believe that stereotype for a while, to be honest with you, but I don't anymore. There's a lot of things here that I actually really enjoy. So Wooden Tie was saying that when people say "have a nice day," it annoys you. Why does that annoy you? That's really it's supposed to be nice. I mean, I worked in customer service for a long time and with salespeople for a long time, so I say things like "have a nice day" And I mean it like it's like kind of like just a closer. Um, why does it annoy you though? Is that annoying to people? Because if so, I might have to modify some things. Um, John Smith says they are world champions when they win World Series baseball. Who else plays it? That reminds me of. Yes, yes, John Smith. That's something that I heard from every single foreigner that I've ever met in it that has been to America. They hate it, it's specifically to baseball. I don't think that basketball does it. I know hockey doesn't do like world champions. But to be fair, hockey does have a lot of international players, and they do play ice hockey in lots of other places. So that one might even be like somewhat palatable, even though the NHL is all exclusive to the US. Anyway, I'm getting way in the weeds on that. But yeah, world champions. And yeah, what's funny is baseball was a sport my dad really liked, so I kind of grew up watching it. My partner is really into it now, and but it still does wind him up when people say world champions. He's like, you literally play it in like four other places. Yes, Japan plays now. Also, Cuba. It's really big in Cuba right now, and a lot of the Caribbean islands are it's big there, like the Dominican and things like that. There's a bunch of players from those areas. Um, yeah, you don't play it here in Britain, that's for sure. I don't know if you play it anywhere else, if it's played anywhere else, maybe in another Asian country, but I don't even know. Um, that would be a question for my partner, and he's not here. So Christopher says, we invented baseball. It's like a it's like a form of cricket. It's like a simpler version of cricket, right? I know I know it's very different than cricket, and cricket can be like a fucking week long competition. Um, I don't know about that. The baseball thing, Christopher. You seem very confident, but I'm not 100% sure. You know what annoys me about Britons is they think they invented everything. I'm just playing. If you say it's true, I'm going to believe you because I don't know otherwise. And if anyone else does know otherwise, then I'm more than happy to hear you out. Um, but I'm just playing games with you, Christopher. You, like I said, you seem very confident, and you've always been pretty knowledgeable. So I'm going to take your word for it. We call it rounders. Played it at school. Watch 101 facts about the UK. Okay, Wouldn't I also agrees they called it rounders. Okay, you guys are telling me. I've heard of rounders, but I don't know anything about it. So I will watch 101 facts about the UK, and I will look into the rounders thing. Um, I don't know what the hell that is. Is rounders like cricket? Or is it closer to baseball? It must be closer to baseball if baseball kind of derives from it, right? Just looking to see if the other comments for you guys, people wrote some things down. I'm just looking to see as you guys gather your thoughts about how to explain rounders to me. Oh, snooker. I just saw something come up about snooker. I really like snooker. I never really watched a lot of billiards in America, but I really like snooker. I was getting into the snooker competition actually. It's interesting. David Bird says, I've been to the US a few times, though only in Florida. I must say, I've never actually noticed a difference in the food. If I closed my eyes, I wouldn't be able to tell if it was the UK or the US. That's not true. That's not, I'm sorry. I don't believe you on that, David. You need to get out of Florida. You need to try some different places. You need to go to New York and have some real mom and pop authentic pizza. Don't go to a chain. go to like Brooklyn or something and get like an Italian, like mom and pop pizza. There's nothing like that here. None of your pizza even comes close. Um, but like even your McDonald's tastes different here. That's interesting that you thought you. I'm sorry. I don't think that that's true, David. I think you just need to venture out a little bit more. Christopher says the Rounders is an offshoot of cricket. Okay, that makes sense. And John Smith said it's more similar to baseball than cricket. Also makes lots of sense. Thank you. I will check out some more deets about that when I can. There we go. That's what I am looking for. Baseball is Rounders, and Rounders is baseball. All right, now I've not forgiven you a lot for McDonald's. Why? I take it you're not a fan. Actually, I'm not a fan of McDonald's. I never liked it that much in America. It was always just like a drunken go to, or like if I didn't have anything else and I was really hungry. But I do like the McDonald's here is different. Like I said earlier, I think it tastes different. So for me, it didn't. I actually like it here. I've eaten it a few times here, and I don't normally eat like hamburgers, like beef burgers. I don't really eat a lot of beef at all. It just hurts my stomach, but I can eat the hamburgers here in McDonald's, the McDonald's here, and it doesn't hurt my stomach nearly as much. So there's definitely something different about it. I don't know what it is, but there's definitely something different. Okay. Also, just a quick side shout out for y'all. Thank you very much for all the good wishes that you guys were sending me when I posted that I was having an earache and I wasn't doing well and I had to cancel the live stream earlier. I do appreciate it much more than you guys realize. This community is really, really supportive, like I said earlier, and I'm just blown away by it every time. So I do appreciate it. Thank you. Maverico7773 asked, how are you settling into the country now that you've been here for a little while? It's a good question. He obviously doesn't watch very often because he would know, right? I mean, I'm settling in pretty well. I do like it. I'm getting used to it more. It's helped me relax a bit that my daughter's settled in a bit. So that definitely has taken a burden off my shoulders. It's still weird. And is it okay if I call you by your name? I suppose so, since you put it out there, achievable. I'm going to call you Bex from now on. If I forget, just remind me. But I am going to try to remember. Thank you. Yeah, I'm settling in pretty well, and I actually really like it. If any of you watched my video about why we left, it basically focused around retirement, guns, and healthcare, and where we were and that the reasons that were the straws that broke our back, basically, to come here. So once you kind of get to that point, what a lot of people don't understand about immigrants or people that flee, and I'm not talking about legal or illegal. I don't want to get into a big, debate about that necessarily. But I just want to make sure people understand, because I am an immigrant now, that in most cases, you're not leaving your home for no reason. Like, you're not just up and be like, oh, I really like it here and I'm comfortable, but I'm going to go try living somewhere else. You're either motivated by a relationship, you're motivated by a job opportunity or an education opportunity, or you're trying to find a better life. So when you get to the point, when you're trying to find a better life, when you get to that point, you're fleeing from something. So for us, we were just fleeing for safety for our daughter, and a better future for our daughter. And hopefully we'll be able to achieve that while we're here. But so since that was those were the reasons that we came here. It was my mindset was already that I was going to live here and it was going to be fairly permanent, and so settling in is inevitable. I don't plan on going anywhere unless you guys force me out for some reason. So be nice. Christopher, came across your channel due to a YouTuber called Foreign Reacts, played your 5 things I love about the UK. Oh my God, Foreign Reacts, he was so nice. That was, yes, I got reacted to. That was the first time ever. That was really cool. And he was really, really nice and sweet. And I actually talked to him a few times since then, because I reached out to him to thank him for reacting, because it never happened to me before. And he was really sweet, and he's giving me some pointers and things like that. So thanks. Yeah, I appreciate him very, very much. He's really cool, and it's cool that you came across it like that. I hope that someday I can get that somewhere else. He lives in Finland. Yeah, I heard that he lives in Finland, but he used to live in, I think, Holland, I think. And the reason that he watched my video was because he has family in the US, something along those lines. Yeah. I watched his reaction because I was 100% sure. I'll put the link in the description below when I post this, but I was 100% sure that he was going to rip me a new asshole, that he was going to completely just put me down and just be like, she's stupid, she's an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I was prepared for. And he was like the exact opposite. Yeah, I don't remember either. I feel like he lived somewhere else and then moved to Finland, but I don't remember either. I'd have to watch the video again. But shout out to Foreign Reacts. Thank you so much for all your help and for your promotion. I appreciate it. Miss Lynn B says that nothing at all annoys her about Americans. Lovely people. I can say what bothers me the most about the US as a place. I feel racism is a huge problem there, which it is, more so than anywhere else. Also, the gun culture, I just don't understand either. But as a people, I think Americans are lovely people. Thank you, Lynn. Mrs. Lynn, thank you. Graham Humphreys 3086 said, their lack of understanding. I feel like there's probably more nuance to that. But what I will say is 2 things about that. Number one, the American education system is ridiculously in need of some overhaul. And if you watch any news programs about America that are based in America, it is not an environment that's conducive to critical thinking or any kind of real intelligence development. I'm going to put it that way. The other thing is, because we're such an isolated country, there are literally thousands, if not millions, of Americans that don't even have a passport because you don't need it. There's so many different places to go. There's so many different places to see within the US borders that I knew very few people who even went to Canada or Mexico. So because they don't have that access or have that opportunity in most cases, because it's also extremely expensive and it's very expensive to live in America, so very few people can afford to do both, they don't have any exposure. And it's kind of a bubble. I used to get offended when people said that, but now I'm not offended at all because I think it's 100% true. There's pretty much a bubble around America, and it's a lot more isolationist than it wants to admit. And I think that that's where there's a huge lack of understanding about cultures outside of America and even within its own borders. If there's something more specific, Graham Humphreys, that you want me to address or that you have a grievance about that you'd like us to talk about, just let me know and I'll be happy to address it. But that's my take on that. Jeff Melvin 6012 says, Americans, not a lot really. The US, quite a lot and too much to list here. Oh, wooden tie. You love The Sopranos. I'm gonna come back to that in a second. Um, The Sopranos. Yeah, The Sopranos was based in New York City and New Jersey, which is where I grew up. And I don't know anything about any mafia. Um, there is a lot about the United States that um, needs improvement, and I can understand why it's annoying. Uh, but uh, it's very difficult. There are too many things to list. Never mind. We'll just try to keep it fun. I've already gotten you guys way too depressed. All right. Uh, user FB4VN. I have visited the States numerous times, and every American thinks two things. We British all live in castles. I blame Downtown Abbey for that. And we personally know David Beckham. On the, um, I don't know why people. I have heard that people all think that you know the Queen or the King, obviously not the Queen any longer, but knows the royal family, or that everyone's like obsessed with the royal family. And there's a lot less people that are royalists here than I realized. But they continue. On the plus side, I find Americans extremely polite and well mannered. Yeah, it's usually fake though. They are not nearly as polite. Oh, the Pledge of Allegiance in schools. I'm going to come back to that in a second too, John Smith. We're not nearly as polite as you guys are. You will literally. Was at work the other day, and someone came up to me, and this was the exact conversation. They're like, "Would you mind for a minute? Sorry to interrupt you. Would you mind for a minute just checking out this item and the stock levels?" I work in supply management, so I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I pull it up, and I'm checking out. So we're having a discussion about it, and then they were like, okay, well, I had kind of have someone asking me for it. So do you mind just following up on that and getting back to me? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll get to that right away and let you know as soon as I hear back. Thanks so much. If it's not too much trouble, if it's not a bother, I would really appreciate it. I'm sure my customer would really appreciate it. So do you mind? Thank you so much. Oh, I'm so sorry to bother you with this. I was like, and it went on like that for a good like 2 minutes. And I was just like, number one, it's my job. So you're not bothering me. This is what I'm here for. Like literally, I get paid to do this. Number two, like, yeah, it's cool. Like, you're not bothering me. It's my job. And you've already said, excuse me. And you already said if it's not too much trouble, like 6 times. And again, I'm not hating on this person because it's just, they're not the first person. This is just one example that I'm pulling out of my ass to give you guys, to illustrate you guys. You're much more polite than we are. Because at the end, towards the middle of that, I was like, okay. And I wasn't trying to be rude at all because he's a very nice person and everything. But I was just like, I get it. It's okay. I'll get on it. Don't worry about it. That's my job. I'm good. But I did work in customer service as well, so I tried really hard to not be an asshole. But um, I think it's funny that you think that the Americans are more well mannered and polite. That's really funny to me. Very funny to me. Yes, wouldn't tie. Exactly what I was saying. You say sorry a lot. So sorry. Would that be okay? Do you mind? Is that all right? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, okay. I'm so sorry. Thanks. You say sorry for things that aren't even your problem. Like I ran into someone the other day and they were like, I'm so sorry. I was like, it was my fault. I wasn't paying attention, not you. You should know to say sorry. Anyways. The Sopranos, that was good. It was probably a bit embellished, but yeah, it is funny. The Pledge of Allegiance in school. Yeah. We literally from elementary school, which is your primary school, the equivalent of your primary school. So that's like kindergarten, which is nursery school, all the way till like 12, 11, 12 years old, which is like fifth or sixth grade, I guess your fifth or sixth year, um, every single morning, no matter what school you're in, unless you go to a private school, which I don't think you have to do it in private schools, but I didn't go to private school, so I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, you have to. You have to say, you can, if you're not like if you aren't Christian, or you believe in a different God, or you can get permission to not say the pledge because the word God is in it. But you have to at least stand. And a lot of people will put their hand over their heart. You literally have to pledge. I still remember it. And I'm going to say it for you right now. You ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Every morning. They literally come on over the announcements. They'll make like a morning announcement, right? What your lunch is or whatever for the day. And whatever's going on at the school. And then, but before any of that happens, they say, "Good morning, students. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance." You have to get up from your desk, put your hand over your heart, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Every day from 5 years till 12. Well, it was 12 for me. You don't have to do it as you get into the upper grades in the like junior high or middle school or the high school. You don't have to do it then. But you do have to do it when you're young. Freedom, though. Christopher says, I laugh when I get asked about the Queen because I have. Have you? That whether or not you know them, whether or not you know the royal family, that's really, really funny. I don't like. I'm an American, and I know I'm not. Of course, you don't know the Queen. Like most people don't know famous people, or I don't know. Just because I'm from like the New York area or from New Jersey doesn't mean I know Tony Soprano, right? Or any of the people that played it in that show. Like, I mean, I don't know anyone famous. I know some people that are sort of known in certain circles, but I don't know any famous people. Why would I? I'm not a famous person. I didn't grow up in that arena, so why would I? So I think it's funny that people think that like the Queen or David Beckham or any of that stuff. That's silly to me. But Americans aren't the smartest group, to be fair. Malcolm and Tanya, hope you're doing well. Yes, I am. Thank you. Hello. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Yes, I'm feeling much better. Thank you. Appreciate that. All those American flags, wooden tie says. We have American flags everywhere. We do. We are a very, very proud country. No, we have the semblance. We like to have the illusion of pride and unity and that we have it all together, but we really don't. We really don't. It's all illusion. It's all a fucking house of cards ready to fall down at any moment. And judging by this year's election that's coming up, it's probably gonna, no matter who's elected, it's probably gonna fall apart pretty quickly. And I say that no matter who, and no partisan, but completely bipartisan. No matter who's elected, it's most likely gonna fall apart. Bex, you've got this, girl. Remember, 2 superpowers are patience and waiting. Appreciate that. Thank you. John Smith, have you been called darling or love by total strangers yet? Yes. What is that? Okay. From where I am, it's a very PC culture. And like you can go to HR for calling somebody that because it's insinuating an intimate personal relationship with someone. So it actually like gets me a little anxious when people call me that. I know they don't mean it. Darling, not so much because my partner called me darling. I've kind of gotten used to hearing it in the British accent, I guess. So that like maybe that's why it doesn't bother me that much. But love, people call me love at work, where in America, like it's super, super PC. Like you can't do anything like that. You'll get called to HR for harassment and stuff. So when people call me that at work, I'm like, or sweetheart. Some people have called me sweetheart. And I've been like, I know they don't mean it. At least from the, couple weeks that I've had, to get to know them. But it's really weird. It's really strange. And you're right. When strangers say it, it's very, very strange. It's very weird. I'm a pretty friendly person. Like if I see someone, if I'm crossing path. I know British people don't do this, but I do this anyway, even though I'm here, because it's just natural for me. But like if I'm walking to the train and someone's walking the other direction, I'll make eye contact and say good morning, or how are you, or hi. I at least acknowledge their existence. I think it's just nice to acknowledge that other people exist. I don't mean anything by it. I don't get anything out of it other than that. But if people are like, hey, love, like it's someone, I was walking home from the train the other day, and there was a gentleman behind me that I couldn't see because they were behind me. Weird. And they were riding their bike, and I was in the middle of the path. They didn't have a bell or anything. So they were like, excuse me, love, would you mind moving over? And I was like, oh, yeah, of course, whatever. But it, like, immediately afterwards, I was like, he just called me love. That was weird. Yes, that's my impression of a British accent for the moment. It's very, very strange, John. Christopher says, yes, in 1977, I met the Queen. I performed for her. That's cool as hell. What did you do that you performed for her? What did you perform? Did you play an instrument, or are you like a comedian, or 1977 though? You're brave. You're admitting your age. That's cool of you. I don't know that I could do that. I wasn't born yet in 1977, but I wasn't born much further after it. What did you do? I want to know, if you don't mind sharing, or you can share it privately if you'd prefer. All right. David Rhodes left a comment. It would have to be the total lack of effort, by not all, of course, but by many Americans who visit the UK to pronounce place names correctly. If I had a penny every time I saw a video where they couldn't even pronounce Thames, as in the river, it's one of the most famous rivers in one of, if not the most famous cities in the world, and they still can't say it right. Also, with cities and towns, if you're putting a video on YouTube, surely you would want to at least get the names right. It only takes a second to Google them. Yet they are saying Leicester and Greenwich, etc. Just put a little effort in. It's not difficult. Completely fair point, David. Completely fair point. I do try to make an effort. I always have, but again, I have someone in my home that's British that kind of compelled me to do that. And of course, now I'm living here, so I try to very much do what I can to learn it and everything. But it is hard because American English and British English are different. They just are. Kind of, you think it's the same language, but it really isn't. And it's kind of hard. And for me, I get stuck sometimes, especially in like the Wales, Scotland, Northern England areas. When we were traveling in those areas, those accents are even harder for me. And so when they would tell me what it was called, I would not really understand it and still pronounce it wrong. But I hear what you're saying. If you're going to do a video about something, you should at least know. And I know how to pronounce that place, right? And I don't know anybody who doesn't know the Thames, how to say the River Thames. Like, you're right. It is literally one of the most important rivers in the history of the world. Even in America, I don't know anyone that calls it anything other than the Thames. I don't know if that's just it must be just my personal experience, or else you wouldn't have written it. But interesting. Yeah. But to be fair, there is a lot of people in America that were visiting or were immigrants or something, and they didn't know how to pronounce American cities. It didn't really bother me though, but I can understand. But I did make fun of them. Like British people I know used to call Maryland, Maryland. Oh, it is funny. I think it's just funny. But it doesn't. I can understand, especially if people are going to be putting out a video about it. Yeah, you're right. Do a little bit of research. the lack of effort overall. Um, Again, I don't think it's necessarily even conscious. I think it's just that America is so much more isolated than people realize. Like, it's even hard to find British television or television from other countries in America. You'd think it wouldn't be, because it's such a rich, powerful country with lots of resources, but it is actually, like, it was hard for us to even find, like football and rugby, and even when England was playing. I mean, the World Cup was easy, um, but it was easy to find the U.S. games anyway. The Olympics are like that too. We can always see when the Americans are competing, but when other countries are competing, it's very hard to find unless you have an American competing. And even if they do play it, they usually cut it in with something from an American, something that happened earlier in the day that an American was competing in or something. It's much more fucked up than you realize. It's much harder than most people realize to get other cultures in America. You just don't, unless you're lucky enough to have exposure in your circle for some reason. Christopher said, I can play 10 instruments, and he played the cornet. The cornet. I was a music student. I've played at the Royal Albert Hall. Fucking go, bro. I was actually a music student. I was a singer. And I had to learn how to play. I had to learn how to play a few instruments, and one of them was the brass ones that I learned how to play were trumpet, trombone, and saxophone, and they were fucking hard. Don't ask me to pick one up now. It probably sound like someone spitting through a straw. But yeah, that shit's hard. So the cornet, cornet, right? I'm pretty sure it's cornet. Yeah. Wooden Tie said, people making eye contact on public transport. Where was that? No, I was on my way to the train, and I made eye contact with someone who was passing me. And they did look at me like I had 10 heads, but I did try. I do try. That's just something that's instinctive in me and part of my personality. I know a lot of people in America that didn't do that either. I think it's just me because I'm a little bit friendly. And I don't like not acknowledging people. I don't really, the only time I acknowledge people on like the train or the bus is when, or a plane or something, is when I have to ask them to move, or wait for them or something like that. I got off of the train the other day, and a woman with a cane kind of almost ran into me, and obviously I was interacting with her to make sure she was okay and let her go and everything. But no, I'm the one who usually initiates the eye contact part of it. I don't initiate actual contact because that's definitely not something I like doing. But that's just something I think that's probably something that I'll dull down in my personality as time goes on and as I live here a little bit longer. But yeah, I do still do it. Wouldn't I also said, you Yanks are so religious. We really aren't. I know it seems that way. It does seem that way because a lot of our documents and stuff have God in them because of our founding fathers, and we don't alter that. And it's on our money, but actually the money thing and the Pledge of Allegiance didn't even come in until like after World War II. The religious thing is usually a very small minority of people that are just extremely loud and vocal and make sure they get the spotlight. I know a lot more people who are kind of passively religious, so they'll like kind of go to church on holidays, or they'll say, yeah, I was like raised Roman Catholic, but they don't actually follow any of the any of the commandments or anything like that. I was raised religious. My mom was very religious. My grandmother and some people on my mother's side of the family are extremely religious. I used to be pretty religious, but I'm not any longer. I'm actually atheist now. Um, but I was raised on it. I was raised going to church and reading the Bible and things like that. But yeah, it's usually just a very loud vocal minority. Um, I play all of them, but I'm even rusty now because you're a fucking gem. Power to you, man. I mean, if you could pick any instrument up after any amount of time, I used to be able to play the piano better. I can't really play it anymore because I haven't played it in probably a decade. Um, my instrument was singing. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. So I can sing, but obviously my voice has changed from when I was in my 20s and in college. But yeah, I went to school to teach music, so I had to learn a lot of that stuff. I can write and read music though. For piano and singers, I can't do it for any other instruments. Wooden tie. That's what you meant. Gotcha. Got you, bro. Wow. What a good interactive stream today. Did I have anything else on my agenda? I don't think I did. I didn't. Oh, I did want to say one other thing. I know it's a bit late, but shout out to all the mothers because it was Mother's Day last weekend in Britain. And I don't know why it's so much earlier here. It's not until May in America, so it does throw me off every once in a while. But I had forgotten because I'm not used to it being this early in the year. Um, but there's a bunch of Mother's Day messages on social media, and one of them actually kind of got under my skin, and they posted it on Mother's Day, and it really really pissed me off. They made a post about how mothers need to stop talking about how hard motherhood is. And look, this equates to fatherhood as well. Okay, so I'm not like singling it out. It's just that this happened to be the exact tweet, and I couldn't. I don't know if it was a tweet. It could have been on another platform, but I don't remember the exact wording, and I couldn't find it in time for the stream. But they basically said that we shouldn't complain because it's super fulfilling and we're lucky and we should just embrace it. Now, while I agree with all of that, we are lucky to be able to be parents because parenting is a very unique experience, and it can be extremely fulfilling. But also, I acknowledge that it's not for everybody, and it still is as fulfilling as it is. It's still equally as fucking hard. Okay, it is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and I don't know that it's ever going to get any easier. And to not acknowledge a challenge like that, I don't know what you're smoking or what kind of high you're on in any other buybacks. Thank you so much for joining us and all of your questions and your comments. I appreciate it. But yeah, I don't know what you're smoking because it's not for anyone to say that parenting is not hard. Either isn't doing it right, isn't that involved, or is lying to themselves. Or maybe they're just high on some really good drugs. I don't know. But for me, parenting is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, which makes those times that it is fulfilling or that it is enjoyable and we have those moments where we connect and that kind of stuff so much more fulfilling. It makes it so much better because we've gotten over that hard time. And also, my child's a teenager right now. So don't fucking come at me right now and tell me it's not hard. It is hard. I have a teenage girl who just got into the country within the last year. Don't tell me it's not hard. And trying to be a good parent is basically what tipped the scales into moving to the UK. So if we didn't have her, we probably would still be in the US, to be honest. We probably would have just sucked it up and tried to deal with it, no matter what came. But being that we were worried about her future and her well-being and her safety, that, just threw the scales in the favor. But don't tell me that it's not hard. Just don't lie to me don't lie to anybody, and don't dismiss someone else's struggles because you might not be struggling with that or struggling right now. That doesn't mean you won't in the future, and that doesn't mean that person struggles any fucking less. Okay, don't be dismissive like that. Shout out to all of the mothers. Shout out to all the fathers. I'll do this again on Father's Day in June as well. Father's Day is in the same time as America, but Mother's Day is 2 months earlier. I don't know. I don't make the rules. Just trying to figure them out. But shout out to all the mothers out there that are killing it. Shout out. It is hard. It's okay that it's hard. It's okay that you are struggling sometimes. It's okay that you don't know what you're doing sometimes. Just take a deep breath and ask for help if you need it. And if you don't have a partner to help you to ask a friend, ask a family member, ask anybody that you trust. Look it up on Google, look up some YouTube videos. You want to reach out to me? I'm fine. DM me. I'll give you, whatever, I'll answer whatever questions I can or help you try to find the answers or whatever I can. It is fucking hard. Don't let anyone ever tell you differently because they're lying, they're on drugs, or they're not doing it right. Bex was in performing arts college in 1977. We have a bunch of performers in the community. I love it. I am loving it. And Christopher says, I remember powdered eggs and milk. Oh, was that a wartime thing? It sounds like it was a wartime thing. I have a special needs son. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, I hope, are they doing well? Are they thriving in any way? Or they're an adult at this point, I think, right? I'm sorry. You don't have to answer those questions if that's too personal for you, Christopher. I completely understand. I'm very protective of my child and what goes out there. So, evening 70s. Am I still having car lessons? I actually haven't started them yet because I have to pass my theory test first, which I didn't know I had to do. And I had to do some kind of extra paperwork ahead of time to verify my identity. So it's kind of been a little delayed. And I started work. So everything's been a little bit delayed while I'm like getting into the new schedule and stuff. But I have to figure that out, and hopefully soon. There's a bank holiday weekend coming up. For those of you who are in America, you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. The equivalent's a long weekend. But you don't have this long weekend because it's for Easter. And since you're a non-religious, secular country, you can't have Good Friday and Easter off unless you work for a private company that allows it. So we have Good Friday and Monday off because it's Easter on Sunday, this coming weekend. And I have a whole list of stuff that I gotta get done, and some of them is some of that driving stuff. But thanks for asking. I technically can't drive right now because I just got my probationary license, so I couldn't drive for insurance purposes until I got onto that probationary license, and that was all the extra paperwork I had to do to prove my identity because I'm an immigrant. I've only been here a year. So now that that's all worked out, I can drive, but I can't drive on my own, again, for insurance purposes. So it's kind of hindering a little bit. That's why I've been taking the train a little bit more the last couple of weeks, which is a bit expensive, but I get my exercises in. So I walk. It's about a 30-minute walk from the train station to work and back. So I'm a little tired by the time I get home, but I get my exercise in, and then when I get home, I don't have to worry about working out, which is good because I usually lose motivation by the time I get home. Your son is 23. I mean, well, I mean, I think I don't know that much about special needs children, and I obviously don't know the specifics about your son. Um, but I assume he still lives with you, and you're still taking care of him, and yeah, that's even harder. I couldn't imagine. I am very, very grateful and thankful that my daughter is healthy and doesn't have any special needs like that. My strength to you, bro, and to anyone else in that situation, and of course to your son. I hope everything goes well, and I hope that you're able to. I hope there's more good times than bad with that situation because that's a really tough situation. So strength to you, bro, and lots of love. Never figured out Thanksgiving. uh, um, Thanksgiving. What a long, involved story Thanksgiving is. It's one of those American kind of. It looks like we're being really nice and sweet, but it's actually a terrible story. We'll get into that. You know what? We're gonna save that until November when Thanksgiving is. We'll talk about it then. I'll do some research and get very, very well versed on it so that I can talk to you guys about it intelligently. But Thanksgiving is basically just a holiday for us to eat. And that's pretty much what it looks like, I'm sure, to the outside world. Yeah, World War II, we got a lot of dried eggs from the States. Many thanks for that, too. You're welcome. You're welcome. Uh, he needs prompting even for hygiene. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it varies. Special needs varies, obviously. It's a broad term. And every person affects everybody differently. But I hope you sound like a really good dad. Um, and I hope that you're finding it fulfilling more than you're finding it burdening. But I'm sure it's hard for you, and that makes me very, very grateful that I don't have that added stress, I should say, on top of my parenting because it's hard enough for me. Thank God I only have one. I couldn't imagine. Um, Geez, when I have my niece and nephews, and then I have my daughter, and I have four. That's four of them at once, and I'm like losing my head by the end of the weekend. But again, it's not mine, and it's not something I'm used to. Right? It'd be different if I was dealing with it day in and day out. You kind of get into routines, and you kind of learn how to handle everybody a little bit better. But yeah. So stay. I've been a carer since I've been a carer since I was 8. Jesus Christ, Christopher. I took care of my grandmother when she has Alzheimer's, but it wasn't full time. It was basically like filling in for my parents or giving them a break. Um, and yeah, I did it full time for like 6 months, I think, because my sister studied abroad to help. So I was helping out and I was out of work, so I was caring for my grandmother to help them out full time. It's tough. So, but I was an adult, and it was tough. So, wow, you sound like a person that's a very loving and giving person, and happy to have you here with our community. You're very, very welcome. Um, I'm gonna end it there because we are like at an hour and a half almost, which is longer than we usually go. But it was a good discussion and we were having a lot of fun. Shout out to all the parents, especially those of you who are dealing with similar situations like Christopher. Shout out to you, Chris. Thank you. I'm going to call you Chris. Sorry, Christopher. Shout out to you for just taking some time to interact with us. I hope everything goes well with you and your son. And shout out to Bex, Malcolm and Tanya, Wooden Tie, Shaquithla, John Smith, Zebra, David Rhodes. I think that's everybody. Yeah, that's everybody. Shout out to all of you guys for all your comments and chats. Um, How's it? It has flown by, right? It has flown by. Shout out to all of you guys for joining me. Shout out for commenting and chatting and interacting. Love that part of it. If you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing if that's something that you'd enjoy. I appreciate everybody and thank you for your support. And I will definitely be having another live stream next week. I'm thinking of trying to have it on Tuesdays just because Wednesdays are a little bit hectic for me. Um, but I'll definitely post something out in the community for you all to let you know. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell just so that you know when we are going live or when there's new videos to drop. And in the interim, there's tons of stuff out there. If you guys haven't seen anything, go take a look. And hit me up on social media if you want under MLS Rocks, MLS ROX. All my Hickson Diaries stuff has been, I've cut them all out. It's just too much to manage. So hit me up on my personal stuff. It's fine. And I will talk to you all next time. Take care. Lots of love. Lots of thanks. And I'll see you next time, guys. End. Ah.